So, is this one working? No. Should I use another microphone, or is this one the one I should use? My micro, here. You can clearly hear the difference. Are we ready to start? Are we ready to put the panel up on screen to get started? Yay. Hello, colleagues. I don't know if you can see me, but it's nice to see you on screen. So I will start this session now. Welcome everyone to the session called A Seat at the Table, Engaging with Decision Makers to Better Understand and Address Data Needs for Evidence-Based Policymaking. My name is Vibeke Nielsen, and I'm an interregional advisor at the UN Statistics Division based in New York. And I manage the Data for Now initiative from the Statistics Division side. The Data for Now initiative is one of the key elements that we will be talking about today, but also linking up to another initiative that one of our core partners in the Data for Now initiative is leading on, called the Data Values Project. The session in its title, as you've seen, is focusing on the engagement between data and statistics producers and decision makers, and that is what we will be discussing. We have a virtual table here with a representative from the National Statistics Office, from a policy-making, decision-making side, and also a representative from UN Resident Coordinator's Office. So we will hear a few different perspectives in our initial panel discussion, and then we will have feedback and input from two discussants afterwards. So as I was saying, and this has also been a topic that has been much discussed at this World Data Forum so far in other sessions, in plenary and in parallel sessions as well. How can we as statisticians and data producers engage more with decision makers, with our users, but also how do they engage with us, and how do they find relevance? What do they feel is important in the conversations with us? We will cover this as well in this discussion, and it links, as I said, a lot to some of the work that we are trying to implement in practice with the Data for Now initiative. I'll just very briefly talk a little bit about the Data for Now initiative for those of you who are not familiar with it. It was launched back in 2019. It's co-led by the UN Statistics Division, by the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN Trends, and the World Bank. And together we're trying to address a few key things that relate to innovation, making use of non-traditional data sources, methods and tools in official statistics production, but also engaging more with decision makers, with the users from the onset. Not only when you have a result ready, but before you decide what to produce, identifying really what the needs are, and then focus on those things rather than pre-deciding what is needed. And the third thing that is key in the Data for Now initiative is to bring different partners together. not only from the statistics community, but also from academia, from private sector, and from civil society. And we've started implementing in some countries. We're currently expanding to more, and we're also hoping to be able to support us and engage with as many as possible, either directly or indirectly. So I think it's time to hear a bit from our panel. And I'd like to start by introducing Ms. Doti Thuha. She's the Deputy Director for Agricultural, Forestry and Fishery Department at the General Statistics Office in Vietnam. Welcome to the virtual table, Ms. Ha. The second panelist that I have is Mr. Monirul Islam. He's the Joint Secretary for the Prime Minister's Office of Bangladesh, and thus also representing the policy side of the discussion. So welcome. And the third speaker is Ms. Halima Neamat, Development Coordination Officer at the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, also in Bangladesh. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to hearing your perspectives. And I'd like to start with you, Ms. Ha.
Yes.
Could you share with us the mechanisms you have in place in your office to engage with users of data and to understand and meet national decision-making needs?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you. And from Vietnam, I can say something, thing about the national statistics. Uh, I work in the national statistics. So I have the in Seattle, you have the mechanism to engage with the data user and meet the needs of management and decision making at the national level, including the following activities. In the first, we in Vietnam, we estimate the National Statistics Office is responsible for the development of the National Statistic Indicator System. The National Statistic Indicator System is as defined in the law of statistics. The National Statistical Indicator System includes the core indicators in all socio-economic sectors in the country. And the National Statistic Indicator System is specify the responsibility for the statistical officers, such as the National Statistic Officer as the statistic on on the ministries. Indicators assigned to the ministry to be collected when devised by the National Statistics Office for the methodology for the result of the data collected by the ministries, and GSO to have that's possible to publish in the website in the statistical yearbook, and maybe we have the quarterly press conference to the all of the user. And in fact, the national statistics, national statistic indicator system, how to the leader of Vietnam to understand and to have the information for the making the reports. In the second, in addition to the national statistical indicator system. The GSO is also responsible for the developing other national statistical indicator systems, such as the national indicator system for the sustainable development, the national indicator system for the digital economy, the national indicator system for the logistics, and all the gender, and so on. And the indicator system are cited to the GSO and ministry to collect and publish in order to meet the information needs of evaluating major national policy of Vietnam. In fact, the national indicator of sustainable development who have the leader of Vietnam to have the decision in the all of the sector to to deal with some issue in Vietnam. And I can talk in the national indicator for sustainable development in Vietnam. In fact, in all of the indicator to accept by the global statistic, global indicator for the sustainable development, and some indicator to develop for the have the impact of Vietnam. And the third, beyond of the national statistic indicators, the zero anyone to conduct on information needs to determine the information of different information user. Every quarter, a press conference in held on the socio-economic situation in order to exchange and clarify information for different users for information in society. And in fact, in every quarterly, we usually to have the press conference to announce the GDP indicator in quarterly for the and the more core information about the export, import, and the law, the information in the investor in of Vietnam, maybe to have the report by the GSO, and the GSO to have the site by the government to have the file the official press conference.
A lot of very interesting things going on in Vietnam, and we're also looking forward to working together under the Data for Now initiative, focusing on some of the indicators that are very important to Vietnam. We were also supposed to have a representative from the Statistics Office of Sierra Leone with us, but unfortunately that was not possible in the end. I just very quickly wanted to highlight some of the engagement that is going on with Sierra Leone, and how also the Statistics Office in Sierra Leone is very proactive, engaging with decision makers, being very visible also in the context, engaging actively, having meetings, press conferences, activities, to increase their visibility and in the visibility, of course, of the data and statistics. But with that, I'd also like to come to the other side of the table, if we can say it in that way, Mr. Manarul Islam, you represent the user side at this table, and could you share with us how your office communicates the data needs required for decision making to the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics and other producers of data? And also maybe if you can share if you face any challenges in that context.
Thank you for a very pertinent question raised to me. You all know that we are not the data producer, but we are data user. From the Prime Minister's office, the government has constituted a high-level post called Principal Coordinator SDG Affairs, who steers the SDG Implementation and Review Committee, which is the apex committee to look after the SDG implementation and monitoring in our country's context. And you all know that data are the lifeblood of performance evaluation and accountability. And without high quality data, providing the data right information on right time, designing, monitoring, evaluation, effective policies becomes almost difficult. And when the SDG was adopted, the prime ministers of our country, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she constituted the SDG Implementation and Review Committee because she understood that it would very crucial to coordinate the implementing agencies about who to do what, and making it in a correct way. And so our first work was to make an SDG mapping, meaning who to do what in a very rightly and timely manner. So we have identified the different actors, ministries, division, and agencies as lead, co-lead, and associate for implementing different targets of SDGs according to our allocation of business of the government. And based on that, the lead and co-lead ministries was supposed to prepare an action plan, meaning that what projects or program they were supposed to implement in coming years. And with a view to monitoring their activities, data was very crucial. So we prepared also the monitoring and evaluation framework, giving responsibility who would be the data provider, who would be the data validator, and authentication process was there. And Bangladesh was one of the fastest countries who produced SDG tracker online data repository in our country. And Honorable Prime Minister launched this SDG tracker while she was at the General Assembly in 2017. So you can see that based on the MNE framework, our monitoring and evaluation framework, Bangladesh has identified that 3 5-year plan would be crucial for implementing of the total SDG. So when we are preparing the 7th 5-year plan, SDG was in place. So we align our 3 successive 5-year plans, say 7th, 8th, and 9th 5-year plan. And the terminal year, we have identified the 3 milestones, say 2020, the end period of 7th 5-year plan, and also the first 1/3 part of SDGs. So 2025 would be the end period of 8th 5-year plan, and 2030 would be the end period of both SDGs and our 9th 5-year plan. So we have by this time implemented the 7th 5-year plan. So we have revised our MNE framework, and now our target is to 2025. And with a view to monitoring our 8th 5-year plan, we have identified 104 indicators. And out of 104 indicators, 66 indicators is SDG indicators, meaning when we are implementing, when in the process of monitoring our 8th 5-year plan, whether it is on track or off track, the indicators would be crucial. So data generation is very important. So for monitoring our, not only for the SDGs, but monitoring for our own national policies and strategies. And out of the SDG indicators, we have to produce not only for SDG monitoring, we are also for monitoring of our 8th 5-year plan. So it is in such a way that our strategies are prepared that there is a harmonization among the global goals with our national policies and strategies. So for that reason, data generation is very crucial, not only for international compulsion, but also for monitoring our own policies and strategies. In that line, we have since we have identified the different ministries for lead, co-lead, associate, and also for data providing agencies to monitor for monitoring of our program. Each each ministries or division or department has given responsibility, and they, based on their action plan, they have identified when to produce data, the time frame. Say some surveys will be done annually, some surveys will be done in 3 years interval, and others one few will be done by 5-year intervals, particularly the poverty estimates or something like that. We have already done that, and a management information system has been developed to produce data in their particular direction. And so when in the initial stages we prepared an SDG a data gap analysis, and at that time only 70 indicators data was available. But in the process of in last 7 years, we have identified a national data coordination committee, a very important committee where 55 data producing agencies and organizations are member, and they meet every 3 months interval. And because of their steady stewardship needs, our data availability is presently 186 out of 231. So at this moment, our government mechanism can produce 186 indicators data, which was only 70 indicators data in 2016. And definitely, we have many challenges as well. The challenges is producing the timely and reliable data. That is very crucial because we out of 186, what is data available, but they are all not updated data. Say 2 years or 3 years time lagging is there. So generation of data in a regular interval is very crucial and very important, but side by side that is also very challenging. So different every government organization who are responsible in implementing SDGs, they have their official, they have their administrative data. But another challenge is how, in a befitting way, administrative data can be converted into official statistics. That is another very challenging task, because the data should be authenticate, reliable, and according to the international standard. Since we have to compare our indicators data to international level. So that is also very crucial. So the capacity development of the government, not only for the NSO, but also the data producing agencies are other ministries or division or agencies as well. Because we have identified that out of 231 indicators, our Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics will provide 105 indicators. But the rest will come from different ministries or agencies. Say Ministry of
Yeah.
Environment, they produce environment related data. So that is a challenging task, how the capacity of the government institutions, particularly who are producing data in a regular interval, and their analytical part. Data generation is one issue, but the analytics behind based on the data is also very crucial. Otherwise, we couldn't produce this in a global forum. Our position. So we are considering this thing, and also even RC office is also helping us in devising international training program for us, particularly even in the COVID season. Couple of workshop or training program was arranged with the help of UNRC office. We are grateful to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much also for these very interesting insights and how you have been collaborating together across the system in Bangladesh. And as you said, in Bangladesh, the UN resident coordinator's office and you in a special, Halima, have also have the very important role in bringing the different stakeholders together. So maybe you in that context could share with us what role specifically you've had in facilitating the user and producer exchange, and maybe bring some insights from the support that you also have provided through the Data for Now initiative, particularly on producing disaggregated estimates of poverty using smaller estimation and alternate data sources. Over to you.
Yes.
Thank you, Viveke, and thanks, colleagues. Warm welcome, warm greetings from Bangladesh. So, yes, I would like to take up of the where Monirul Islam has mentioned. UN Resident Coordinator's Office in Bangladesh do play a key role. As you know, the resident coordinators of in every country do support the implementation of 2030 agenda. The providing mostly the strategic support on various interagency group and even country team. In Bangladesh, we have a particular example, which is we have a UN data group, which is an interagency group, was established in 2017 after SDG was in place. So we were with the request established in response to our request of the government to support on the SDG data generation guidance, monitoring and reporting. So in Bangladesh, we do play a key role in terms of how we can support to enhance coordination, partnership with government institutions who are primarily responsible for data generation. I would say, give an example of Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics and also the line ministry departments. As a team, we work with NSO and other entities. They need to strengthen the national statistical system for timely, quality, and reliable and available disaggregation data to monitor the national progress. I would say mostly on the SDG data. As mentioned that the UN Resident Coordinators Office play a key role, and our main role is to, on a coordination, we support bringing together the national institution with the custodian agencies for effective dialogue and support them to equip with the right methods and techniques of generating and managing data. So Data for Now initiative that we have implemented in Bangladesh, that was a very good example. With this exercise, we had tried how we can, the poverty estimation exercise using big data, satellite data, could contribute to the policy decision of the country. So as you know, understanding the poverty situation is critical for policy making and for both government and non-government agencies, especially the poverty estimation is needed to gauge the national program effectiveness, guide the country's development strategy. And specifically a country like Bangladesh, where the rapidly changing economic environment. The poverty estimation is also very key, very timely, and reliable poverty estimation is very key for resource allocation to achieve SDG goals and better life. Under the Data for Now initiative, what we have done with the support of UN Statistics Division, and Vivek, you were part of it, and many thanks for that. So we try to use big data, mainly the satellite image data, where we consider two parameters, nighttime light and daytime light, and we as a development indicator, and we used it in a model. The model ran without any traditional data and which ensured high frequency result availability and also quick calculation with high accuracy. So we run the model, we validated with two household income expenditure survey data, which was one was in 2016 and another was just recently published early this month in 2022. The accuracy, the poverty estimation accuracy was very high. When we did the validation with 2016 data, it was around 84%, and the one we did it with 2022, which is recently published, was more than 90%. So just to give a little bit detail on that we did with the satellite images, we did the national poverty estimation, and which was 19%. And with the HAZE, the household income expenditure carried out by Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, which was published this year, was 18.7%. So you can see the difference is 0.03%, so which was very less, and it was very effective. So Bangladesh government did not have official statistics for poverty for last 7 years. So the last one was done in 2016, and the latest one is 2020. So during this interval period, you need some big data, non-traditional, this images, the satellite, the modern technology to do this kind of estimates. Because policy making decision policy decision would be very much need to be based on evidence, and you cannot wait that long period. As I mentioned, this is a crucial and organized informed decision making and targeted action towards poverty reduction. You need estimates. So we, with the support of modern technology, big data, satellite images, we could do this. And Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, the NSO, who is responsible for the official statistics and can make significant strides improving the accuracy and relevance of poverty estimation in Bangladesh, particularly using this new methodology and in the intermediate period. So you, as an UN, we come up with the technology, we come up with the capacity development, technical assistance, and that is where we should be working more strongly. So we have a good ally with the national institutions, the Prime Minister's office, the national statistical organizations, and other entities who are generating data. So we come up, the UN Custodian Agency, they come up and we support, and we try to collaborate to reduce duplication, to avoid conflicts, and also bring up the modern technology that we have it within our UN. That's all from my end, Vivek. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Halima. I think we've seen a few different perspectives now, and I would like to have the three of you remain with us, but I would also like to ask our two discussants to come up who are here in person. First, Mr. Charles Lebon Berry Kimpolo, who is the Director, Industry Initiative and Active Director of Skills for Employability, as well as the head of the Next Einstein Forum at the Global Network Secretariat of the African Institute for Mathematical Science, the Next Einstein Initiative. Please come up to the podium. Second, we also have Ms. Andrea Ordaz Nemet. She's the International Relations Coordinator at the Hungarian Central Statistics Office. Welcome. We'll hear from both of them some of the perspectives that they have. And first of all, I'd like to hear from you, Charles, who both have been part of the initiation around the Data for Now initiative and also actively engage in the Data Values Project. What your thoughts are, listening to our panelists, but also more widely, what you think on these aspects of the different perspectives coming together and engaging around data and statistics.
Okay, thank you, Vivek, for such interesting moderation of this session. Good afternoon, everyone in the room, and my greeting also to the online participant. I don't know how many people are online. We are not able to see you, but we know that you are with us. I'm going to reflect on the amazing presentation of our three speakers. Unfortunately, one of them couldn't join us, but I think will be with us, maybe watching the videos. So yes, the first speaker from Vietnam, Ms. Ha, was trying just to remind us about the importance of the National Office of Statistics to really lead the mandate of producing national statistical indicators across all social and economic factors. I think that's the mandate of any NSO. And then for her, she was trying to emphasize the need for those indicators to inform policy and support the sustainable development that he really wanted to push together. She took time really to go through that, and I think that's very important. I think in the Data for Now initiative, we believe that the government should play a key role, and official statistics will always be there. The idea is really to improve existing system and all of that. So that's what I actually took from the first presentation. And then the second speaker, Ms. Islam, was the fact that he's working in the Prime Minister's office, gave him a privilege of being in a position where they can coordinate, because in a number of countries, ministry work from maybe sometimes silos, but I think the Prime Minister's office has the opportunity really to put everyone together and try to define role and responsibility when it comes to data, set the expectation, who does what. So in his presentation, he was just trying to share with us this SDG mapping model that the office actually put forward. I think that was very important, because if you don't do that, but when you talk about SDG, it touches a lot of institutions. So the coordination was quite very important. Yes, you collect, you analyze, and then you dissimulate. At the end of the day, you need to measure. I also like the fact that he mentioned the M&E framework to ensure that all data producers are brought together. You need to track them. How are you doing? And how do you define the profile of your institution? I think I really like that. And the number of indicators, 104 indicators, and then almost over 80% of them to be SDG. That's quite amazing. I don't think that every country has that. But that's quite important for us to, and you also mentioned the fact that it's important to determine the timeline of deploying those surveys, right? The reason data of 9 is very important is that people say if you take 6 months to collect data and analyze, the time you produce your report is irrelevant. I think that's also very important because you mentioned the fact that poverty indicator is one thing. People need to know how many poor people are there. Are we actually doing something important? And he ended his presentation by acknowledging some challenges as well. And I like that. To ensure quality, data is actually real. How do you build trust in data if the quality is in question? I think that's very important. The second one, which also came across what the third speaker mentioned, and we have seen this capacity building will always be there. You need to assess the need. You need to do some need assessment to identify capacity. And capacity is not only technical. We talked to my colleague from Cameroon. It can be leadership. It can be change of mindset. So he acknowledged that, but he made an emphasis on the analytic part. That's where I'm coming, and I like that. That's why I actually took. They want to know what's coming out from data. The third speaker who came from the UN, I really like the fact that Bangladesh has that kind of support, but the UN is just acknowledging that data for now is really a vehicle to acknowledge what countries are doing and how do we consolidate. But how do you acknowledge that you need to be going beyond statistics? I'm going to give my thought on that. When statistical offices were set up, I don't think that people were thinking about the digital revolution. We have taken by surprise, but we need to adjust. If you rely only on statistics, you are losing the opportunity to learn from social media data and all of that. So the second speaker, Alima, was just trying to remind us that they wanted to be there, support the government to implement the Agenda 2030. And then they formed the UN data group. I think those are kind of forum that you need to put in place so that being a convener, because if you have a UN, many people will come because you have a UN. I think that's a very good forum. And the idea was really to enhance coordination, bring all stakeholders. I think the UN can speak to the private sector, they can speak to the government, they can speak to the civil society, they can speak to the data community, bring them on board, and for us to be more effective. I like the way you say, Alima, in a lot of these things, if we don't have better coordination, we're not duplicate a lot. But we don't have unlimited resources. I think we need to capitalize on what people are doing and for us to even accelerate our work. And he sees the data for now as a way to go beyond statistics, which is what I know. Emerging technology, big data is just one of them. There's a lot of technology that going to disrupt the way we're doing business. But how do you go beyond statistics? Especially when you don't have data. In Bangladesh, I was surprised. I'm learning that for the past 7 years, they did not have data on poverty. How do you really want to support intervention around poverty if you don't have data? Can you really talk about something that you cannot measure, right? And he sees the UN colleague there to really provide the technical assistance, the technical assistance for the government, really to ensure that they have the right skills for them to advance. Now, here's my perspective. If I still have time, my perspective is in I to the power 3. So it's I. So 3I. One is initiative. The second one is intervention. The third one is impact. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of initiative going on. And each initiative has a reason. There's a value proposition. The data for now, for example, we just realized that for us to track and measure SDG, if you continue relying on the SDG, the National Office of Statistics, you're missing the opportunity of big data or things like that. The data revolution did acknowledge that. So initiative, we will have some. They're going to be new. They're going to be ongoing initiative. But for me, one thing that we need to do is what Alima said, we shouldn't duplicate. So each initiative should come and build on top of existing initiative. The second one is an initiative for me is like a vision, like this is what we want to do. But what are the interventions that you are focused on, right? The intervention is really the reality on the ground, right? You're talking about something, but in Congo Brazzaville, people say data for now, really? Yes, we want to do this, but what is happening on ground? What are the very specific interventions? Intervention for all the community is not only from the government, it's from the user, for the civil society. I think the intervention is very important for us. It's very easy to measure an intervention. I want to do A, B, C, D, this is the timeline, this is the budget. And then after a certain period of time, you need to report. You can see what you actually produce. The third one is, what's the impact of those kind of intervention? Some of the stuff that we are doing is very difficult to demonstrate impact. Right? I think for us, we need to think about the impact because we don't have a lot of time, especially for the SDG. So I will leave you with this kind of advice: is I, or I to the power 3, I'm a mathematician, so I like numbers. If we can make our initiative impact-driven intervention, then we'll be able really to accelerate the development or the achievement of SDG. I will leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think that's also the impact, thinking about that from the onset, right? How do you actually plan for the impact when you initiate something to make sure that there is impact? And I think we have good examples here of where they thought about bringing the users from the onset. So thank you for highlighting that. I'd now also like to hear from you, Andrea, both your views on or thoughts of what the three initial panelists shared, but also adding some of your own perspective from your recent work that relates to measuring the value of official statistics. So over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for our hosts. It's an honor to be here as part of this roundtable discussion. What I like about today's session is that it truly integrates the perspectives from all sides. And I think it's very crucial that we continue to have these dialogues. It's the basis of the value of what we do and how official statistics are used. So I will start by saying that the thing that I noticed first about all presentations is that they're about relationships. That's what's at the core of all of it. So we see in Halima's presentation how there's an important role of coordination with the Prime Minister's office, with the Bureau of Statistics, with users, with trying to bring new technology to the table and then providing the guidance for that. We hear from Moniru on the perspective as a user. What are the 3, 5, 9-year-old plans? And this is something that NSOs have really got to know intimately. But they have to ask. They cannot assume that they know what users will need. So that dialogue, it's very crucial. And then also to see how NSOs do react. So we saw with Vietnam with the national statistical indicator system, how they gather all these needs to ensure that the products that they deliver have value, meaning that they will be used. And I think this is very important because I heard earlier today in a different session, NSOs have to prove their value, otherwise the money will go elsewhere. And I think because of that, there's an immediate reaction to say, okay, then let's measure the value of official statistics with money, because we're concerned about funding and the financial aspects of it. But the thing that willingness to pay, because official statistics is a public good, what it doesn't cover, the price or the willingness to pay, it doesn't cover the relationship, the dynamic aspects that I think the panelists described very well today. I wanted to touch on something else that was not directly mentioned here, and that is that when we talk about users of the products, especially with policymakers, we don't really much contextualize it in terms of the market that we're in. And we don't really, it's almost like a separate discussion where we talk about statistical products in the market and those that are used for policymakers. But I think it would be helpful for NSOs to listen to users and to consider what they're doing in terms of the market in that sense. It's quite difficult because the feedback that NSOs receive is not quite as instantaneous as when there is a transaction with money. So it's a little bit more complex than that, and I would like to draw this or tie all these presentations to a really great piece of work that I was fortunately a part of, which is the UNECE Task Force on Measuring the Value of Official Statistics, which was chaired by the UK, and the report was just endorsed in June of 2022. And in this work, we really reflected on what the value of official statistics is, and also how to track it, how to measure it. Because as statisticians, we produce a lot of information, but this is something that we should also track to guide our strategies. What's important in all of this is to consider, we do have a model, we need to consider 4 attributes of value. This is based on a model that was developed by Statistics New Zealand. So we have to make sure that what we produce is dependable, it's applicable. We think of the relationship with users in terms of customers and the use of our products. Those things, although are not necessarily measurable, so they're not going to be translated into indicators, but they can provide a guideline. They can be helpful for NSOs to see or to contextualize the user needs, to see where the value proposition can be improved. And what we did is we took these aspects, these attributes of value, and put them on top of a results map, where we have concentric circles, and at the center we established a long-term goal, very much like when Irul explained with the short or medium and long-term goals for SDGs. Then we have midterm strategies, tactical outcomes, and indicator areas. The indicator areas are important because when we consulted with different countries, we asked them, how do you deliver value to your users? And many of them refer to their quality guidelines. But those guidelines are written for statisticians. And the quality of the product that we produce does not mean that the user will perceive that value necessarily. So the value that a user has and the quality of a product are 2 completely different things. And if NSOs are thinking, well, I have very good quality products, therefore it has a very high value, we're actually not putting the users at the center of the conversation. Another tool that NSOs frequently use to talk about value is user satisfaction. So very often we will have surveys and ask users, how satisfied are you? How do we fulfill your needs? There's another problem with that, and the problem with that is user satisfaction implies that there already has been an experience. You cannot ask someone if they're satisfied with an ice cream if they haven't tried the ice cream. And what's interesting about this is, for example, I can have a perception of the value of a bicycle without buying the bicycle, even without knowing how to ride the bicycle. So this is something that NSOs, I think, could really think about. And to me, that's what it means to have a user-centric perception of value. And it's that switch. It's not enough to say we have high quality. It's not enough to say we have values that we follow, and these are the legal frameworks. First, you have to ask the users, what do you need? What are your goals? How are you going to do this? And then you can support. And we also have to realize that we're not the only ones. So it's in a bigger context. So I think that's where I'll wrap up. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting perspectives as well. And I think it relates a lot also to the Data for Now initiative and the Data Values project, how they initiate and how they engage and focus on the user needs from, as I was saying, from the onset before you even start producing statistics. We have a few minutes left, so I'm wondering if there's any questions in the audience. Yes, there's, I think, a volunteer coming here to.
Hi everyone. I'm Barabe Kuda from Cameroon. Uh, uh, in other part of my life, a part of being professionally at NSO, I'm also leading a think tank in our country. And this think tank is affiliated to the African Capacity Building Foundation, ACBF. And the motto there is to narrow the distance between knowledge and power. And we, we have had that you also need to narrow the distance between the power and the beneficiaries. If we take the main objective on the motto of this data forum is towards data that empowers our world. Who is our world? Who is representing our world? It should be the people, the beneficiary. And in the topic of our session, we talked to have a seat on the table. We had three main speakers. We had the representative of the producer, and also representative of the power, Mr. Islam from the Prime Minister's office, and you have the partners. Someone is missing around the table, and this should be the beneficiary. Because if we need our data to empower the world, as departing from the last intervention of the, the value of data produced and used by the decision maker should impact the population. And we need the feedback from the population to improve the quality of the data used by the decision maker, produced by the national statistics and the data producers, and support by the partner. So I pledge to review our model, not to be a triangle, partner, producers, and decision maker. Please, can we add another seat to have a square?
We
Partner,
definitely should.
producers,
Yeah,
decision maker, and beneficiaries.
yeah, we should. Yeah.
Who should interact to have the feedback from one to another on this system. Thank you.
I very much agree with you, and I'm sure everyone here is nodding, so everyone agrees. I think at the conference that may sometimes be a bit challenging, but I think many of these initiatives focus actively on that in countries. But I'll also ask the speakers to say or come with their views, but maybe we can have the second question first, so that you can respond to both before we close.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My name is Hautan Tizani. I come from South Africa. I work from South African government, Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Okay, I will also ask more or less of a similar question, but I want to talk about the gap that exists. I think when I was reading the session overview, it talks about people who are sitting with data or who are like technicians on data systems, and then you have executive, which are those that are making decisions. I think it's my assumption that each and every country has national plans, and those plans needs to be monitored, maybe short-term monitoring, long-term, and medium-term monitoring. And when you do that, I think the impact of those plans or the outcomes or impact of this plan filter down to the systems of government, if I were to do, or a statistical office through the service, but mostly through systems of government. Then you'll find that the people who are sitting those systems are not necessarily pure statisticians. That's why you'll find that the quality of data is not that good. But we are trying, because I'm involved, we are trying to make those systems work. But there is a gap or a gray area when you have some sort of a feedback loop to the decision makers. They make decisions, but they never really get feedback from the decisions that they make, the impact. So they keep on, maybe Charles, I can see you are from South Africa, maybe you can attest to this, that our executive always, when they go to parliament to make decisions, there's always new decisions, but they don't give progress about what they committed previously.
Yeah.
So that, that gap that exists between people who are producing data and executive is quite important to close, because um, politicians are always making decisions with little integrity about whether their decisions is negative and positive. They have been doing that for long. So how do we make them to be able to assist us as technicians to get to give them some sort of good information to make decisions, because they've been doing their decisions. So they don't really, we are trying to build systems that can assist them, but they are not supportive. So how do we get that buy-in? I just want to hear different experiences about how do we have that buy-in from the executive to have maybe chief data officers to sit with them at the executive level to at least make them use data for decision making, because this evidence-based decision making idea, I don't think it works. I think it now is still a mystery in most of the departments. Okay.
No, thank you very much for that question as well. There's a very clear relation, I think, between your two questions. We're almost running out of time, so I would like everyone, both remotely and in person, to keep it very short in their response. Maybe if you can give us one or two sentences on how you think we can make sure that the users are being heard, both from a statistics side, but also from a policy and decision-making side. How do we ensure that our users and our population is the one that directs us and makes us follow the needs of the population overall? And maybe I'll start with you, Monirul, if you can say this in one or two sentences.
Thank you, Vivek. Yes, in our country's context, definitely, as I mentioned, at the Prime Minister's office, a high-level post has been created as a principal coordinator, and under his supervision, there is an SDG implementation and review committee where 25 secretaries of different ministries are member of that committee, and the member of Bangladesh Planning Commission, particularly the General Economics Division, is the member secretary. So that the committee definitely seeks to monitor the implementation status of different targets of SDGs in our country, and also in that committee and the Statistics and Informatics Division, the NSO of Bangladesh, is also a very crucial part. And in any discussion, we have a standing instruction from these offices that whenever any SDG implementation process or any SDG implementation review is done, or any discussion with different stakeholders is done, a representative from the NSO should be invited in that meeting. It has been instructed from this office, so that as it was discussed in earlier person, that level of coordination and instruction has been given, and from the NSO, yes, they always try to participate in that meeting and give their feedback, and they also know what the what the agenda. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Halima, what's your very, very quick response to our two questions?
Yeah, my quick response is to bring the civil society, private sector, the representatives to these groups so that their voice could be heard and feedback could be received by the other side of the table. That is my quick response.
Thank you very much. And you, Ms. Hao, any quick feedback on how you bring the users and the population to the discussion?
Inside of the producer data, we need to have the feedback on the data from the leader or from the user. In fact, in Vietnam, we usually to organize the press conference in announce the information in indicator indicator data indicator in data in core data in Vietnam to the public, and maybe we only for the exit to good decision. We in GSO we need to improve the more the analyze the data, analyze the data. Yes,
Thank
and in fact, in maybe in Vietnam, the assist the good decision maybe it's in good in the national level, but no, we have the improve for the have the more the asset for the sub national subnational data,
yeah,
such as the
yeah. Thank you very
um,
much. Thank you. Subnational level is a very important keyword
yeah,
as well. I think not only
yeah,
thinking national, but also by region.
yeah.
Maybe very quickly from you, Andrea, and then if you also can hand over the mic to Charles to give his brief comments afterwards.
Thank you. I think that the way for NSOs to show, to prove and improve their value and to have an impact is to listen and to really keep those relationships at the core.
Yeah.
So,
If you can give him the mic.
Yes, I think we're running out of time, and I would just say that if we find ourselves in a position where there's a circle that people have drawn, you are out of that circle, we need to draw another big circle where we include everyone. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much, and thank you for listening to us, for joining us. Thank you to the panel, to the discussants, and looking forward to the continuation in our work, in our engagement with the population and the users. That's the end of the session. Thank you.